Hello. Hi. I'm here to talk about Harumasa today. Don't worry, he's not bugged like Billy was. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about his gameplay and hopefully guide you through understanding how he works and how you can build your own combos and, in general, how his gameplay is going to function. Now, I assume if you're here, you know how Harumasa works, but in the case that you don't, let me catch you up to full speed. He does most of his damage through his enhanced dash attack. That is this fancy thing. Now he does that dash attack when there is marks of electro prison on the enemy. What the hell is that? It's a little crosshair that shows up. How do you get that? With these guys. Those are quivers. Some people call them traps, some people call them balls. Quivers. When you detonate these in one way or another, you will apply the mark to the enemy. And once that mark is there, you get his dashes. Cool, that's all I really need to know. That's the absolute basics of his gameplay. Once you know that, we can get into the more advanced stuff. So, there are two ways to detonate these quivers and give him stacks of electro prison. The main way to trigger his quivers is through aim shot, which you can do by holding down the basic attack button, which you probably know. The other way you can detonate them is by overriding them. If you set up quivers and there are already quivers on the field, it will delete the old ones and place in new ones. But by deleting the old ones, it gives you stacks of electro prison. Now there's two main differences that you need to know about detonating in these two different ways. When you detonate these guys with an aim shot, I should be an aim shot from this, or aim shot from this. Both do the same thing. What that does is if the enemy is stunned or under anomaly, you'll get one extra dash. So once we get into the stun combos and stuff, you will need to keep that in mind. That if you detonate them by overriding them, you will get one less dash than if you detonate them by simply aim shotting. Cool? Awesome. Alright, so now you know how to detonate them, we gotta know how to apply that into combat. The thing about overriding existing quivers is only certain abilities can do it. Just to quickly explain, there's four main ways that you can set quivers. EX special is one of them that will set 6. This chain attack at the end of the animation will set 6. Shocking, assaulting, whatever the hell, getting an anomaly on an enemy will also give you 6. If there are no other quivers present on the field, that is a 12-second cooldown. And then the end of his basic attack chain will set 2. Unless you just did a chain attack, in which case it will set 6. And that matters. Those are all different ways you can set up quivers. Now, not all of those ways can override existing quivers. Namely, his anomaly cannot override existing quivers because of the way it functions. So when we start talking about his combos, you will have to keep in mind that if you want to override them, the anomaly isn't going to count. If you want to have an anomaly in your stun, which I don't recommend you do, but if you want to do that, you have to make sure it happens when there are no quivers present. One way that can happen is with a chain attack, for example. Only the very end of this chain attack sets the 6 quivers. However, it can trigger shock at any point in the animation, almost. So what can happen is that your chain attack will trigger shock, which will set 6 quivers. The chain attack will end, and you will immediately replace those 6 quivers. I should note that is extremely impractical. You should never fish for it unless you're in CU defense. Never fish for that, it's not going to happen very consistently. But it's something you keep in mind. I don't believe his EX can do that, but basically, if you want to fish for the anomaly trigger, make sure it's when there are no quivers on the field, otherwise it will not do anything. Now, think about overriding quivers. The marks of prison are stored. So right now I have, how many stacks is that? I guess for M0 that would be 6 stacks of prison. So that would give me 3 dashes at M0. Something I can do, if I were to go for a basic 5 here, I'm going to end up having all of the stacks. Even though I didn't do the funny aim shot thing, this does give him all 4 dashes. I'm M1, so I've gotten more, but for the sake of understanding, you can keep overriding quivers until you hit the max stack limit, and that's what you see people do for the 19 dash combo, if you've seen that. The only issue with this is that it requires you to set up a basic attack 5 within 10 seconds of your stun window, and doing that itself takes up time, so I don't really recommend going for it. But it's a cool thing if you want to mess around with it. I think the most practical ways that you're going to be overriding quivers is with the EX and with chain. And generally, you don't want to do it all the time, because getting that one extra dash can matter. But again, I'll get into that later. So now that we know how to set his quivers and how to override his quivers, we have to do that in a stun combo. Before I get to the stun combo, I want to quickly show the Anomaly Team because that one is much simpler and should take me a few seconds to explain. So Harumasa's Anomaly Teams are very simple. Generally, it's you have a Anomaly unit, some kind of buffer, and obviously Harumasa. They all function the same way. The goal is, you know, applying your shock, applying your buffs, doing your dashes on Harumasa. Then you apply your shock, or whatever it is. Make sure that there is a 12-second window between your Anomaly being set up, because there's 12-second cooldown on his quivers happening through Anomaly. But that's like the basic rotation. Set up shock, set up buffs, do his dashes, set up buffs, set up shock, set up buffs again, do his dashes. It's super simple, it just looked itself. My Harumasa is M2, so he will do many more dashes, which means that there is basically no downtime to his gameplay. If your Harumasa is M0, the Anomaly Team is a lot less smooth to play. It still functions, but because there's so much more downtime, you may want to consider running Yanagi if you have her, so you can spend that extra downtime just on her getting 2 shocks, getting a disorder before you go back to your rotation. You'll really have to mess around with it and see what feels better for you. I can't show it because, again, my Harumasa isn't M0, but the concept is the same. You apply your Anomaly, apply your buffs, you do your dashes, and then you loop that over and over again until you get to your stun window. Let's get back to the stun window. The main team I recommend when doing stun stuff is Chingy Nicole. Chingy Rina is okay. It's not much worse on paper. The issue with Rina, aside of just being a worse buffer for Harumasa, is she doesn't have a good way to trigger a chain attack really fast. Like Nicole. Nicole's ult has a chain that happens instantly. It is instant. Same with her chain. Her chain is super fast. So Nicole is just much more practical. Beyond even just buffing better, she makes just your combo so much faster. However, something about Nicole is that she will make your Thunder Metal uptime worse than with Rina. This hasn't really been an issue for me. I did a run on Marionette where I used Thunder Metal with Nicole, and at least from my own personal experience, it performed better than using Hormone and Parker. Yeah, I don't really like Hormone on Harumasa. I think being restricted to never swapping to him unless he's in the stun combo is not great. It also forcing you to ult within 10 seconds is also not great. It's just a lot more restrictive in how you play him. You can't assist to him, you can't really backload your string because of Hormone if you wanted to do that. It's not bad, it's good on paper, it's just restrictive and I'm not a fan of it. I rather recommend 4-piece Pecker over 4-piece Hormone. Yeah, I'm not here to give you the exact numbers. I'm not a numbers guy, I'm here to show you how you play him. But anyhow, this is the preferred team for stun. If you don't have Chingy, I guess Ambi can work. I really don't like Ambi as like a pure stunner. Like a on-field stunner. It's super dope. It's super jank. It's better to like do some pseudo out of stun if you're playing Ambi. But then you're kind of just better off playing the Anomaly Team anyway. I'm not a fan of the Ambi Nicole version of the stun team. I'm sure it's fine. You can definitely like clear. You can definitely get 3 stars on like Deadly Assault with it. But it's a lot of work and it doesn't feel very good to play. So if you have the option to play the Anomaly Team and you don't have Chingy, I would give it a try. But anyhow, now that we're here, the stun team is fairly simple. When you're not in stun, you do this until the enemy is stunned. I know, it's crazy. Once you get to Harumasa is the funny thing. I will not be giving you one combo and tell you this is the optimal combo. You should always go for it because such a combo does not exist. Your combo will matter on a lot of different things. It will matter on your decibels in battle. It will matter on your energy. It will matter based on the damage that you're doing, that you want to do, when you want to do it. And it will matter on your Anomaly, that's the most important part. Unless you're in Shiyu defense, and even then it's a bit skeptical, you will not be able to line up an Anomaly trigger exactly when you want it in your combo. That's just not really realistic. So I don't want to recommend that ever. You can fish for it if you want it. If you want to get like a super cool time, obviously go for it. It is technically optimal. But I don't think it's practical. Just want to get that out the way immediately. But yeah, I don't think there is one perfect combo. The combo is going to matter, especially if you're playing him in a long mode like Deadly Assault. You'll see if you watch my 50k run, every combo I do is different from the last, because it depends on when I have my ult, how much energy I have, and if I get a shock in the middle of it or not. It really does matter. So what I will show you instead is how to dynamically use your combos whenever. I will also begin to use some example combos, some bread and butters that always work no matter what, and don't require any extra setup with shock. I think if your combo has to rely on an anomaly trigger in the middle of it, it is not a good practical combo. You can still go for it, of course. Like, I'm gonna link all like the cool like 19- combo M0 stuff in the description if you want to try those out for yourself. But I will not be recommending them because I don't think they are super applicable to every scenario. Anyway, the basics to a combo in stun is before you get to stun, you want to have 6 Quivers on the field no matter what. There's a few ways you can do this. Usually you can get this for free from the first wave in Shiyu defense. If you're not in Shiyu defense, you can do it by just doing this basic attack 5 against the wall before you start the fight. You can just toss out a random EX before you start stunning. There's a bunch of different ways. Just make sure you have 6 Quivers before you enter the stun window. Next, you gotta actually stun. So now that the enemy is at super high levels of daze, you want to do some swap cancel stuff. What I'll be showing is manual chain combos. I will not be doing auto chain combos. I think those are fairly straightforward to where you don't really need that much like of an example list to really see them. Anything I use here is applicable in terms of just like strategies or on Quivers. That is applicable in auto chain as well, but I just want to point out that the combos I am doing are manual chain only. But you can apply your knowledge of how to utilize Harumasa's Quivers in any combo really. That doesn't really depend on the chain. Okay, so once the enemy is here, I'm gonna swap cancel this, swap cancel that. Aim. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Swap cancel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Aim. Cancel. Ult. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is a 16- combo that is very consistent, very easy, as ultimate is buffed. That's it really, there's no shock dependent. I got a shock mid combo, which was super lucky. I didn't utilize it because I'm not here to show that. But anyway, if you want to go for a simple, super simple M0 combo that is consistent, it requires 2 EXs, but it is consistent. You go for that, you get into the stun. You want to make sure you don't trigger a chain with anybody before you get to Harumasa. You want Harumasa to be the guy to get the bar glowing rainbow. And you aim shot on him, you do his first 4 dashes. From there, you can either trigger the chain on him with the last hit of his dash, and then chain on Nicole, if you don't have Nicole ultimate. If you do have Nicole ultimate, you just swap off of him and then use Nicole's ultimate. That will trigger his chain attack, both of those. Then you go to Harumasa, obviously his chain attack hits. He will set up another 6 Quivers. You aim, you apply the marks, you do another 4 dashes, and then you do his EX, you swap out of him into Nicole, you do Nicole EX. That will quick assist back to Harumasa, you do another 4 dashes, and then there's 2 things you can do. If you have a second EX, you use it. If you don't have a second EX, I can't show this with M1 unfortunately, but if you don't have a second EX there, after his dash he will automatically do N4 and N5, and that N5 will set 6 Quivers as well. So the alternative there is to just essentially do this. After your 4 dashes, you do this, you aim and then you ult instead of the EX, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? It will be the same thing. I did barely run out of stun time versus this enemy, because something you might know is elites are stunned for less time. Versus the boss, that fits into the combo, no problem. So yeah, that's a simple, consistent M0 combo you can basically always rely on, because it doesn't require ultimate from Nicole, because you can just chain attack if you don't have it. It doesn't require a shock. It doesn't require 2 EXs, it only requires 1. And 16 dashes is a very good amount. Once you get past like 13, 14 dashes is when he starts being at like a relative level to Zhu Yuan's like stun damage. So if you want him to perform, that's an easy, consistent combo you can always like rely on. It's basically always going to be available to you. Even if you mess up the combo a little bit, you will at least get like 15 or 14 dashes. If you do them like slowly and like the stun runs out, you will get most of the damage in. It's super difficult to mess it up. You don't get punished for timing something poorly. It's something I recommend to start out with and always have in the back pocket if you don't have any like super fancy stuff planned. That's a good bread and butter to have for M0. Now, if you want to get more fancy, is when we can start implementing the overriding stuff. When you override Quivers with EX, which is going to be his main way to override them. I think EX is the most reliable way. So when you override Quivers with EX, this combo is going to start looking like 1, 2, 3, aim, 1, 2, 3, 4, as opposed to EX, aim 4, EX, aim 4, for example. It's going to be EX, 3, aim 4. It's 1 less dash total, but it's much less animation time. And that's basically what you're going to look for when you start min-maxing this combo. You're going to start looking for quiver overrides as opposed to just setting them up separately. That doesn't make this combo too much more complicated. You have to see when you start doing this. The easiest time to do it is when you get your stun, whatever. Instead of aim-shotting like I did earlier, you just do this. You can do that instead. That combo isn't optimal, not at all, but I just wanted to show the beginning of the combo, essentially. Instead of getting to the stun and aiming immediately, you do an EX immediately. But it's just to show the concept. You can apply that anywhere in the combo. The overriding can happen at literally any time. You can decide when you want to override as existing quivers. But anyway, when you start getting super optimized stuff is when you start implementing what I'm going to call the EX trigger. The way his EX works, essentially, is he does this animation, and then he fires an arrow. When you see that a big flash right there, that's when he fired the arrow. It sounds a bit like a paper bag. It sounds a bit like a paper bag, like hitting the air. When that sound plays, he's fired the arrow. Now, that EX can trigger a chain attack. So that EX can trigger a chain attack. The arrow triggers the chain attack, not the actual melee attack that happens first, or the melee attack, not the initial attack. It's the arrow, and the arrow is disjointed. So what EX trigger does is you fire his EX, and then after he fires a projectile, but before it hits the enemy, you use Alt. And then that happens. What that does is it will cancel the end lag of his ultimate animation. It will still fire the ultimate, but it will cancel the rest of the animation, immediately give you a chain, and you can speed up your combo essentially. It's super sweaty to do this, by the way. If you want to implement this, it's super sweaty. But that's what EX trigger does. I don't know if it's like an actual name, but I'm deciding to call it EX trigger. It becomes easier the further away you are from the enemy because the arrow has travel time, of course. If you do it at point blank, it's a 4-frame input window. If you do it from like here, it's closer to 10 frames, a bit less. I didn't count it from here, but from point blank, I know it's a 4-frame window. It's really difficult. If you mess it up, you get punished hard for it. So you want to know what you're doing with this combo. If you start with this tech, you want to know when you want to use it, and you have to be well aware. If you mess it up, you're fucked. If you ult too early, he just won't set his quivers. If you ult too late, you just won't get the animation cancel. And you lose the chain as well, because you triggered it already with the X. A lot of things can go wrong if you decide to go for this, but it is worth it because of how much animation time it saves you. If you just do actually get it, you do the cold chain, you quick assist back to him, and then you continue your combo as normal. But yeah, that's how EX trigger works. Something to note about EX trigger as well, there is one frame where you technically did hit the timing window. You managed to cancel the EX with Alt before the chain was triggered, but you didn't cancel the animation. What happens there is that you fire his ult the same frame that the EX arrow hits the enemy, so it can't skip the animation. It's a frame perfect fail. If it wasn't for that, it would be a 5-frame window, but that's what makes it a 4-frame window. Something to keep in mind if you realize, wait, but no, my arrow hit, why didn't it work? That's why it didn't work. It's not really the worst outcome. If you get that, you still get the chain at least, but you won't get the super fast chain. Now, when do you utilize that in combos? It can depend a little bit. If you want to look at an example, there's of course the 19-dash combos that I sent in the description. You can look at those. I don't think it's really worth ever going for this in like a sustain run unless you're super consistent with it. It doesn't net you really that many more dashes at all, but it's super cool. It's super funny to get it, but it is very hard. With yeah, if you want to min-max stuff, that's what you can look at. I will attempt to show a combo that uses that funny cancel. But yeah, I don't super recommend going for this unless you're really min-maxing, because it is super hard and it's very punishing if you fuck it up. Alright, so I want to do a full breakdown of all the Harumasa tech there is. Obviously manual chain, but that's obvious. You should play on manual chain. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. You get used to manual chain after like a day of playing it. I really think it's worth it. It's very fun to use it, so that's something you should be using if you want to really optimize them. Quivers and overriding quivers. There's basic detonation and then overriding. Knowing when to use these different types of detonations matters. That's a big deal in making your combos have more dashes in them, because it's less animation time than always going for more and more setups that are like branched out as opposed to making them mixed. Like, it is better to do like doing this is slower than, say, doing this. So even though it is one less dash in total, it will allow you overall more time to set up other things and get more buffs, things like that. So quiver overriding is very important. There is, of course, EX trigger, which I explained earlier. That is EX trigger. Extremely sweaty, not really worth it in a big run unless you really want to risk it, but you can do it. It gives you a super fast EX and a really fast ultimate, and of course it gives you the cold chain. So you may want to mix that in there as you see fit in your combo. Now, some tips for manual chain, because I know a lot of people fucking struggle with this shit, and I understand why. To not trigger the chain on manual, you have to hold either the attack button or the special button. But the issue is, he has attacks on both of those. Oh no, what will you do? There's a few things you can do. Namely, when you start buffering the input for special. I like to hold special during my combo as to not trigger the chain. And there's two main points I can do this. If I do it during aim mode and hold E now, I'm holding E and it's not gonna trigger anything. Like, we're all good here. I can also hold E in the middle of a dash. I held E. I'm currently holding E. You can't see it, but trust me, I'm holding E right now. I hit Q on accident. Yeah, during a dash animation, you can hold E. During aim mode, you can hold E, and it's not gonna mess with anything. If you wanna hold it after this, and he goes for that, you can dash cancel that. You can hear the sound effect. You can just dash cancel it. As long as it doesn't fire it, you're not gonna get messed up. So you can, like, there's many ways to just hold the special button and it not messing you over. You have to know when to hold it. Either during this, or you just cancel it. All of those are ways to maintain your button being held without it messing up your combo. This is very important because the other way to stop chains from happening is that you hold the input on every single dash attack. Which you can do. It's not impossible, but it's very clunky, it's very annoying, it's pretty difficult too. So yeah, just getting used to knowing when you can hold E is really the big deal here. I'm gonna hold E through this entire sequence. See, everything's fine. And even here, I cancel that with dash. You're gonna know when to hold E, but that's what I do. Or hold E, whatever button it is on your controller or whatever. On controller, I think it's like a really inconvenient button. You might have to clog rip or rebind your buttons if you want to go for that method, but it is something you can do, and it will make it so much easier to play on manual chain. I really recommend finding a way to get used to it. Something to note, manual chain will not cancel chain attacks. Sorry, will not cancel the chain prompt if you trigger it with a chain attack or with an ultimate. So if you want to use your ultimate, know that it will trigger a chain no matter what. So yeah, so that's for the manual chain stuff. Okay, now I've explained M0 and the basic combo routes. One thing you really want to keep in mind when making a combo is always start with 6 quivers already on the field. You get them for free, basically. You should always have them there. When ending a combo, for example, and you know you're gonna fight again, so like Deadly Assault, if you just finished a combo and you want to set up 6 quivers again for the next combo, what I like to do in Deadly Assault is end on an N5, because in the combo I would have done a chain already. So it would set up 6 for me immediately, and then I have those sitting there ready for the next rotation. You can also just end on an EX, or toss out an EX randomly during the fight. Just make sure you always have 6 quivers before you get to your stun window. It's super important. It is 3 dashes. They should always be there. Another thing, you want to make sure that everything important you do is buffed by Nicole, or Rena. I recommend Nicole. So when you start your stun, you EX swap cancel. That initial EX is enough to buff 2 sets of dashes, or a dash and an ultimate. Sorry, 1 set of dashes and an ultimate. You have to kind of like get a feel for how long her buff lasts. It's about 3.5 seconds after like the orb goes away. So it's like what, like 7-8 seconds in total. But you kind of just like get used to it. You tend to feel the difference, or if you record yourself playing, you can check like, oh, the runs out here, so let me do this here and this there. Making a combo will take time. You will have to look at your own gameplay, see how your buffs line up, when your resources are available, what is worth doing, what isn't worth doing, when you want to use your ultimate. All that matters, and you will have to get a feel for that yourself. What's the knowledge you have obtained from this video? So yeah, you go in with your 6. Basically, you always do this when going in. You can either do your 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever the hell it is you're doing. Tossing out your ult will matter. If you're on Hormone, make sure your ult comes out as fast as possible, because you have only 10 seconds for that to be buffed. His ultimate isn't most of his damage, it is his dashes, but an ultimate is still an ultimate. You still want to have your range buffed. You also want to keep in mind when you have your Nicole ultimate, when you don't, and then obviously you switch between doing your chain attack instead or whatever. Yeah, making a combo is all about knowing when to set up your quivers, how to set them up, if you can swap cancel it in some way, making sure that your Nicole is buffing as much of your damage as possible. So you never go too long with the dash ring, so you don't want to just be like, oh, 1, 2, 3, you do this. You don't want to be doing this for ages and ages and ages, because your Nicole buff will run out. You want to make sure you branch out your stuff as much as possible. The same applies to M1 combos, which I'll get to next. So yeah, when making your own combos, there are things that you will just get a feel for over time. You will know when to space, how to space them out, when you want to go for 3 dashes, when you want to go for 4 dashes, when you want to cancel this, when you want to chain attack. If you get a shock, you want to know how to use it. Let me talk about shock actually. Another tech of Harumasa is triggering shock in the middle of his combo. If shock triggers in the combo and there are no quivers currently, that is a good thing. If he triggers shock during his chain attack, for example, that is incredibly good. So, because what you can do there is you will immediately get the overriding for 6 quivers. If that happens to you, you gotta capitalize on it. You wanna be paying attention to the fight. And if that happens, you go in, immediately do your 3 dashes, aim shot, and then do the 4 dashes you would have gotten from your chain. I don't think it's worth fishing for. I think it's never really gonna consistently happen in something like Deadly Assault. But pay attention to the fight. If you see a shock happens at a convenient time, always look at the anomaly bar, always, and try to see when you're gonna get that trigger. If you can make it trigger at a good time, take advantage of it. If you can't, that's fine. Ignore it entirely. But it is something that you have to keep in mind when making your combos and adjusting them for whatever situation you're in. Now let's get into M1 combos. As you know, my Harumasa is M2, and with M1 he does more dashes. The difference between M0 and M1 Harumasa is that he does 7 now. Or well, 7 if I had the extra mark, but you get the point. He does more dashes. So how do you adjust his combos for this? His combos are a bit different. A theoretical limit, at least that I've seen so far, for M0 with like all the fishing and all the garbage is 19 dashes in stun, without lighter or anything. With M1, I have gotten 22. If you want to talk about practicality, the most practical M0 combo I've seen is 17 dashes. And the 22 dash combo or 21 dash, it's a tight window, so I'm gonna say 21 dash. But the 21 dash combo for M1, it's really practical. There's no goofy setup at the beginning. There's no shock dependency. It's all within the tools you have, and you'll always have those tools, basically. So you'll always be able to get that. At worst, 20 dashes. So if you want to talk about the increase from like the Mindscape, it's really not that big unless you min-max. If you min-max, it's quite big. Because the jump from, again, 17 practical dashes to 21, 22 practical dashes is quite big. It's 5 dashes, 4 dashes, 3 dashes, depending on how much you think 22 dashes is practical. So let's go with 21. It's a 4 dash increase over the 17 that is with M0. The nice thing about M1, I wouldn't say it makes his combos easier, it makes them less reliant on RNG and things like the anomaly bar. You can still take advantage of it if it happens randomly, but you're no longer a slave to the anomaly. You have your own tools that work when you want them to work. Basically the combo I like to do, it does need Nicole ultimate though. So if you don't have Nicole ultimate, there is a slight variance to it, and I will show that. Yeah, let me show a variant of the combo without Nicole Ultimate if you don't have it, for example. You can do this instead. If you don't have the Nicole Ultimate, you can do that instead. It's not as strong, of course, but still a fair amount of dashes. It's so incredibly easy, and it's actually much easier because I don't have to do the funny cancel anymore. Yeah, if you don't have the resources for it, you go for that instead. Get a bit less buff up time on his first couple dashes, which is a bit unfortunate, of course. But it is... Well, if you don't have the it's a backup combo if you don't have the resources for the big boy combo. And it isn't reliant on a shock, that's the biggest part about it. For Harumasa's M1 combos, you want to apply the same philosophy that you did for the M0 combos. You still kind of follow the same idea of spacing out the dashes in a manner that they are all buffed, making sure your ultimate is used at a good time. It's a lot of the same stuff, but it requires less setups because you get obviously more dashes per set of quivers. The quivers just give you more dashes now, and because of that, you are less reliant on shock or any anomaly. You don't need it at all anymore. You have other ways, like the ways you already had to set up quivers are now enough to pad out your entire stun window, so you're no longer bound to those anymore. You no longer need the anomaly. The combos don't change too much. It's still the same concept. It's still basically the same starter. It's still very similar finisher. You just end up doing more dashes in total, and you have a few extra that are also out of stun. But it's the same thing, and of course, as always, make sure you end your combo with 6 quivers on the field ready for your next stun. Now, something I want to just quickly go over for M2 users, so me and maybe like 2 other people on the planet. His M2 gives a buff to his next 7 dashes after he does a chain attack or an ultimate. The buff is fairly sizable. It's not insane, but it is nice. If you have M2, you may want to slightly change your combos to be less optimal, but more front-loaded. It's something that I do sometimes against like Thracian and Shiyu defense. If that is the case, you may want to start doing something like this. Where immediately swap cancel, well, not that fast to make sure the orb is actually up, but you know. Is you can immediately start your stun window with his ultimate, and then do your first couple dashes, because the ultimate will buff those dashes. If you don't do that, the first dashes will not have any buffs. You will get a combo that is significantly less optimized, and you will get less total damage. But if you can kill faster, if you could, by front-loading that M2 buff, it's worth going for. It's what I do sometimes. Because one thing you're gonna notice when you play M2, you can get 3, potentially even 4 sets of dashes with M1, but there's no way in hell you're gonna be able to get 2 chain attacks and an ultimate to buff all of them. So you would have to consider that. It's just mainly helpful for the mode Deadly Assault, which I personally believe is a little more important than Shiyu right now. You only need 6 stars out of 9, so you only need 2 good teams or like 3 mediocre teams in there right now. But it plays very differently from something like Shiyu defense, because the fights are just so much longer. You have to know how to work with your resources over an extended period of time, and that does matter. Because again, as combos do change, which is why I showed combos where we have Nicole Ultimate and when you don't have Nicole Ultimate. I guess one thing that I should also mention with Harumasa, if you don't have the energy at the beginning to like immediately go for EX, start the combo, just don't go for it. Just do an aim into the 4. Again, like the combo I showed at the beginning, the M0 bread and butter combo, it barely requires any resources. You should be able to always do that one no matter what. But you will have to adjust. If you see that you get to your stun, you don't have enough energy for something, work around it. Or just, if you're in Shiyu, just reset. But if you're in Deadly Assault, you have to work around that somehow. Remember, you have all your Witch Quivers, you have his N5, you have his Chain, you have his EX. I guess the Anomaly too, but you don't want to depend on that. All of those are things that you want to be keeping in mind when you play him. And also you want to make sure, like, oh, did I ever override any of those existing Quivers? Because that also will matter. Yeah, there's a lot to him. It will take you some time to get used to him, how his combos work and all that. I hope the example combos help you and kind of understand how the combo structure really works for all this stuff. But yeah, one thing you'll see me do in Deadly Assault as well is I like to assist to Harumasa as much as possible, not just for damage and days, but also because of the decibels it gives him, so to get as many ultimates as possible. When you play him in Deadly Assault, you will notice you will not have his ult at the same time every single stun. You might not get it all, you might get it super early, you might get it super late, and when you get that ult, will change your combo, and you will have to work around that. Ideally, you want to make sure it's buffed by Thunder Metal, you want to make sure it's buffed by Nicole, all of that stuff. And again, when you use your ult, remember, it will always trigger a chain attack. But yeah, I hope I covered everything that I needed to cover here. Harumasa is very complex. If you have any questions, please do ask me. There's a lot of information, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to fit this all into one video of decent length. And there's probably stuff I forgot. Again, I'm not here to give you one optimal combo that always works, because again, such a combo does not exist. But I'm here to give you the tools to make your own combos and apply those as you see fit.